because they're all college students, and we got them over to Greece. And this was in my inbox one day as they were unloading the bookshelves at the library. I can't begin to tell you what a thrill that gave me. When I got to Kithra last year, I was able to see the bookshelves actually in action and also many more in storage. And the beautiful library. So here's my family arriving at the library last summer. And this is the library promotional flyer that they put out for the library, which I think is very, very quality and very nicely done. And the bookshelf project will continue. And I will now turn this presentation over to George Poulos, who will tell you what happened with the exterior of the building.
Okay, just before I get my PowerPoint up, what happened was in Kithra that a fund of 260 roughly thousand euros had been granted by the Piraeus municipality to Kithra to create a library in the old school of Kondeljanica. Are there any students here of the Kondeljanica school?
Yes.
No, but the one, here we go. You Kondeljanica too, here we go. So you remember the old school. It had fallen into a great deal of disrepair, and with this money they began to do the project. Now, as you know, or as you might suspect, some projects in Greece and on Kithra can go horribly awry. And so this one followed the same natural pattern. So they had X amount of euros to spend and they ran over budget. There is a terrible tax impost on councils. Virtually 40% of every amount of money they're gifted is lost in taxes. So in the end, the library ended up as a kind of very ugly shell, which was very unattractive for people to visit. So here's the library now as it looks. That is not how it looked when we went there last summer with the building crew to make it look like that. The first big impetus for the library was the Americans. The Americans came in. The Kithrians on Kithra were completely depressed. I would use the word depressed about their library. They had, what's a nice way of putting it? They hadn't managed the library project particularly well to that date. And when they saw a young American woman with very little Greek and not a great deal of knowledge of the island, who went to that was an incredible amount of work that went to that. That is really special. They kind of thought to themselves, hey, yes. They kind of thought to themselves, we'd better get moving here. The second big impetus occurred when, in September 2012, the Republic of Greece, the national government, provided a temporary librarian for the library. In the meantime, poor old Sin and Vicky and I are going, exchanging emails. It's been a year or so elapsed, and they're going, what's happening? Why is everything so slow? Paloki Kapsamati was a municipal clerk for the Graduate School of Management and Cultural Resources at the University of the Peloponnesus, and Kithra was so blessed to have her for 6 months. In that 6 months, she gathered around her a very large group of volunteers, an excellent group of volunteers who learnt from her very quickly the skills of running a library. All the shelves were put together, all the shelves were beautifully stacked and beautifully presented, and the library was then underway. Without the shelves, we would have been stuck at the original impetus and we would have got stuck there. We would never have got off the ground. By utilising the shelves, we got organised, the library committee got organised, a library committee got set up, the Australians became involved. And the interior of the library was improved to a very, very high standard. So this is how the library looked last year. This small section here is the children's library. Some of you will remember Maria, who for 4 or 5 years ran the children's library at Valley. She came to be one of our volunteers, and that's the designated library for children. Here are many books coming in, being donated by many different people, and that's the way the libraries were stacked. Those of you who know from the Nyanika school, beautiful high ceilings, so it's a very beautiful library. The two most indefatigable volunteers were the leaders, Dimitri Kudopouris and John Stadatot. Most of you will know Dimitri on the left. He's the bank manager at Potamos, and he's dedicated a lot of his life at the library. I think he spends more time with the books than he does with his wife Sophia, and his attention to detail and detailing the books and how they come in and how the quality of them are presented and the lending of the books, Dimitri handles impeccably. He's also extremely good with children, which you'll see later in the little video clip that I have. John Statatos helped save the Paseos collection, which Angela Nataris and John Nataris gave $20,000 for. And he's a very trusted person when we come to understand cultural matters on the island. If you want to know whether a cultural matter will work, we go to John. And he devotes a lot of his time there. In that photo on the right, he's with Professor George Huxley and his wife during a visit in 2003 to the island. George Huxley, of course, is the author of that very big, large book on archaeology, one of the best archaeological digs ever conducted on Kitterland. The permanent volunteers now number more than 15. So there are 15 people who are devoted to this library. The love, devotion and surrender to this library on the island is quite amazing. So what were the challenges and obstacles? Well, as you can see, this is what happens when you leave a building project to Catherians. I hope there's no Catherians in the audience, are there, Manuel? But this is it. I mean, Dropis, who would come to a library that looked like that? But that's how the library looked. That pillar was an occupational health and safety issue. If you kind of pushed it, it would have fallen over. So we had to get what our best Albanian pillar builder, Ramos from Ayipalaia, and he's rebuilt them. So all this helped exacerbate the lack of morale around the library. Having something like that is not an attractive thing to see or to be attracted to. The result, of course, was that nobody utilised the library. The third big impetus after the Americans and the very great luck we had with the librarian was an outstanding design by architect Elias Vasiliadis. That's the man on the far left, that's Vasily. He was assisted by the wonderful young engineer Yanis Skinner, who lived on the island, and they provided their services for this project free of charge. And my builder and best friend on the island, Rafat Khalil from Egypt, is the builder on the little 40-year-old guy on the right. And that very handsome guy there, I think he's a film star from Hollywood who just happened to come in at the time. Resulting in the completion of the project, we told them we'd finish it in 17 days. So they all laughed. Some of you might have been there when they were laughing. But in fact, we did it in 17 days. We actually did it in 16 and a half. And there was a very complicated building and very complicated things to have constructed in that 17 days. But because of young Rafat Khalil, it happened within the time schedule. And as some of the Iranian trustees who are here will know, it didn't quite happen within budget, but they very kindly provided the upskill in the budget. This is how it looks now. I wanted to knock that tree out because it kind of gets in the way of going through the arch, but they all love it, and it's actually now the main symbol of the library. So the exterior has been beautified. It's landscape, all that beautiful outdoor seating, there's a garden area, there's a pergola. The painting of the this is where, while I've got the erratic crust here that's very handy, this is where some of my overruns occur. There was a steel fence that was running up the side of the building and they wanted to keep it. And I said, it is rusted out, it's not staying. So we decided to put a stone fence there. The whole building, by the time we had this beautiful structure, had only had one coat of paint within their €260,000 budget originally. And so we decided, or I decided, to repaint the whole building with a double coat on top of that. And this is, and we also paid for the clearing of the land next to the building. It's owned by Panayoti Rent-A-Car, and not typical to type, he has decided that if I cleared the land, then he would allow us to have this very large block of land next to the library for parking, and that's exactly what happened. So all these little extras, Angelo Crones, just to explain how some of my budgets do run over a little bit. There is a good reason for them though. And so this is how, you saw what we saw at the beginning, and this is what you see now. It's absolutely beautiful. That's Bezula there, the little place, you sit there. The garden, you can see, has been kept up. I've got proof of that because